All right, so now we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to just talk about a couple other topics that fall under my department heading. And the first of those would be the adjustment to the TPI formula we're implementing in April. All right, so with the December 2014 National Dairy Genetic Evaluations, USDA and the Council on Dairy Cattle Breeding introduced a new method for measuring daughter pregnancy rate, along with other enhancements that they did to the genetic evaluation model. So the previous definition of DPR was based on number of days open, which was then converted to a pregnancy rate within a 21-day cycle. So days open was measured from the end of the voluntary waiting period to either a confirmed pregnancy or 250 days in milk. The new definition is based on an actual observation of pregnancy, which is a series of yes or no measures at 21-day intervals between 50 days in milk and 250 days in milk. So an important difference is that now cows lacking pregnancy confirmation data at 250 days are no longer considered to be pregnant. They're no longer considered to be pregnant. They're now assumed to be open. So that's a key change between the previous definition and the new definition. So the improved fertility and productive life evaluations now have a stronger relationship with an animal's TPI value. The new DPR handles differences in voluntary waiting period much better than the previous model. There's less emphasis on early conception and more on conception rates throughout the animal's lactation. So the genetic trend for all breeds is estimated to be twice as large as before. So it's probably a little hard to see for the audience, but this scale goes now from -2 up to +16. This previously just went up to +8. So we have a much larger scale. Improvements in fertility management from the early 1960s until 2000 was not sufficient to keep up with the decline in genetic merit. From 2000 on, Holstein breeders have emphasized fertility in your breeding selections. That has not only halted the long-term decline, but the Holstein breed is the only breed to see significant upturn in DPR values. Here on the screen, we have graphs showing the cow and sire trends for DPR for the Jersey and Brown Swiss breeds. So you can see down here at the end we have 2005, and then 2012 is the last year. And here on the screen now I have the same information charted for Holsteins. So you can see the positive trend that our breed has shown over the past 10 to 15 years, and we would expect that trend to continue with the new, more accurate information that we have to make decisions, along with the increased selection intensity that breeders are making for fertility traits. So in December, many breeders were surprised to see the higher relationship among the top TPI animals and their corresponding high fertility values. Part of the explanation of this change is an increase in the spread or the range of the standard deviations for those traits. So for the PTAs of all fertility traits as well as productive life. Adjusting the standard deviations of the traits used in the TPI formula will move some emphasis from the fertility traits over to the production traits, so that'll be with the change that we're implementing in April. And that comes much closer to the original TPI formula change that was announced this summer and intended by the Genetic Advancement Committee and the Board of Directors. So you can see here on the screen now, we have the increased spread in the PTAs we're now seeing for both DPR and productive life. Both traits show about a 2% increase in spread when comparing August values to December. So all of this has led to a higher correlation between fertility traits and TPI values, which you can see up here on the screen now. The new DPR values are more highly correlated with a couple new traits that we had in December, which would be heifer conception rate and cow conception rate, as well as productive life. We're even seeing a slight increase with production, which gives us an overall increase in correlation between the new DPR values with TPI. So a real exciting thing for me, and I'm sure for everybody in the room as well, is that Holstein breeders today have more information than ever before to help improve the fertility of our breed. We've reached a point where we can change our focus on breed improvement from stopping the drop that we've seen over the past several years in fertility to really evaluating the impact that fertility has on profitability at the farm level. So I've got a couple slides I'm going to show now here with some information on real animals. And this one here focuses on 3 cows that were born in 2006. And my real intention with this slide is to show that you get what you breed for. And it demonstrates the emphasis on how different traits can have an impact on the lifetime profitability of an animal. So up here we've got 3 cows on the screen. Our first column here is a cow that has high PTAs for milk. The middle cow would have a high fertility index value. And the last cow here has a high PTA for type. So all cows milk several lactations and were profitable for their owners. But it's interesting to see when you look at the animal's genetic values to see the number of days in milk it took them to achieve their lifetime milk production, as well as the number of lactations that they stayed in the herd, returning a profit for their owners. So here's a chart that I really like, and this looks at our new fertility index. And we took an example of a 2,300 cow registered Holstein herd, and we analyzed cows born between 2007 and 2009. So in the first column here, we have fertility index values. The herd was broken into 4 groups based on their fertility index value. And then the next 4 columns we have are our actual performance information for animals in the herd. So when you're just looking at the top 25% of the herd compared to the bottom 25%, you can see the top group stayed in the herd for a whole 11 months longer, milked an extra lactation, and produced almost 30,000 pounds more of lifetime milk than their lower counterparts. So these numbers might seem striking at first glance, but they're also really exciting because it shows that breeders who are selecting for highest fertility traits can expect to see real results over time when looking at the profitability of your cattle. So up here on the screen now, we have the Adjusted Tpi Formula that will be implemented in April. You can see we've adjusted the standard deviation values for fertility index, as well as productive life. We also updated the numbers on the end. We updated the multiplier value to 3.9 and our constant value to 2187. And those are used to help maintain the same genetic base and range that as was used for the December 2014 values. So just a quick word on our implementation plan for this updated formula. So our current December 2014 values will remain official until our next genetic update that takes place in April. At that point, all animals' TPI values will be updated at the same time to this new adjusted formula. So adjusting the TPI formula for the new standard deviations is only really going to have a small impact on the TPI values and ranking of the top animals. So we looked at a couple different groups of animals here. For example, the top 100 genomic bulls, the average TPI change is really only 1 point when comparing the current TPI values with their TPI values using the new standard deviations. The average change up or down is 11 points, and so there's going to be a little reshuffling and a little re-ranking, but just a very small amount. This really is not going to alter the status of any top cows or bulls. And our best animals are still our best animals ranked on this formula. All right, and one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that was just to give everybody a quick update on our new preliminary genomic predictions. So some of you may have heard about these, some maybe not, but our preliminary predictions, we also call them the weekly predictions, they first became available this past November. So now instead of just getting new genomic values once a month, they're actually distributed every week on Tuesday mornings. Holstein gets a file at 8 a.m. from USDA and the Council on Dairy Cattle Breeding. And these are a little bit different than the monthly values or the official values that you'd see. So with these results, you only get your genomic PTAs. There's no haplotype or genetic condition information available with these. And also there's no reliability provided with these preliminary PTA values. And the reason that is because the geneticists that are calculating the evaluation, there's some approximation used in the steps where they're combining the genomic data and the traditional data. And while there's a very high correlation between these weekly values and official values, there is still some fluctuation when they run it through the full evaluation. So there's no reliability values published with this, the weekly info. So like I said, they are highly correlated. I think the published value is 0.99%. But just looking at some individual cases, there's not a huge fluctuation in TPI values, for example, but looking at individual traits, we are seeing some movement in those cases. So for that reason, these weekly values aren't supposed to be published for marketing purposes. They're not supposed to be appearing in magazine ads and things like that. Really the driver behind these was farms that are really trying to make those culling decisions as early as they can. Whether they're culling off the bottom end of their herd or things like that. We are seeing that these values are are able to be used for those on-farm decisions, but they're not official enough to be used for marketing. And so how are we distributing these values? So when you send a sample, a DNA sample into the lab, we expect that your preliminary results will be available in 3 to 5 weeks. And so we're emailing out spreadsheets with this information on Tuesday mornings. So because of that, when you're placing your genomic test order, make sure that you give the person you're ordering with your email address so that we can be sure that we'll get you your weekly prediction. We're not sending anything out via postal mail. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, these weekly values are available in Enlight along with your monthly and other official values.